The film opens in the dark shroud of the 19th century. In the middle of a crowded plaza, three Filipino priests, Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, stand tall, their heads bowed yet their spirits unbroken. They are the Gamborza, symbols of faith and justice, condemned to die by the colonizers who saw their enlightenment as rebellion. As the executioner tightens the noose, a hush falls upon the crowd. The priests exchange one final look, not of fear, but of resolve. The trapdoors fall open, and with it, the cries of the people pierce the heavens. Among the sea of onlookers, a young boy watches, eyes wide, heart pounding, witnessing the cruel death of men who dared to speak truth. That boy's name is Andres Bonifacio. In that moment, the fire of revolution is lit within him, a fire that will one day ignite a nation. Years pass, and time shifts. The camera sweeps through the present day, settling in a noisy high school corridor. Joaquin, a 17-year-old student, stands between a bully and a trembling classmate. Without hesitation, Joaquin throws a punch, not out of rage, but out of justice. It earns him a seat in the principal's office and a long lecture about discipline and self-control. He listens quietly, unaware that the same fire that once burned in Bonifacio's chest flickers now within his own. The next scene brings us to Joaquin's classroom. The teacher announces that she won't be around the following Monday. She and Joaquin will be attending a public speaking contest. Joaquin slouches in his seat, hesitant, uneasy. He whispers that he wants to withdraw, but his teacher smiles and says softly, "It's time for you to step up. We'll practice. You'll be ready." The words linger in the air, like a promise. Later that week, Joaquin and two of his classmates visit the Museo in Katipunan, their laughter echoing through the quiet halls. They are ordinary students, scrolling through their phones, until they stumble upon the relics of heroes, blood-stained flags, old manuscripts, and faded portraits that once held the weight of an entire nation's dream. The air grows still, and history begins to awaken. The film fades back to 1892, where the flickering lamps of a secret meeting light up a humble room. Dr. Jose Rizal, calm yet firm, speaks before the members of La Liga Filipina. His voice carries conviction as he declares their goal: to unite the people, to seek reform through peaceful means, to protect the oppressed, and to educate the nation. Sitting among the crowd is Bonifacio, older now, his eyes burning with the same fire from his childhood. After the meeting, he approaches Rizal and speaks with reverence about his two novels, works that shook the conscience of a nation. But Rizal, ever the visionary, warns him. "Guns and knives are not our weapons, Andres," he says. "We must arm ourselves with knowledge, with courage, and with love for our country. These are the weapons they took from us." Bonifacio listens, torn between idealism and action. That night, he returns home, restless. As he lays in bed, news breaks through the darkness: Rizal has been arrested by the Spaniards. Panic surges through Bonifacio's veins. He rushes through the streets, desperate to free his mentor, but Rizal stops him with calm defiance. "These bars," Rizal says, his voice steady, "can only cage the body. They can never cage the spirit of what we are fighting for." Bonifacio's heart breaks, yet he understands. He bows his head, his hands trembling, then walks away, not in defeat, but in awakening. In the silence of his home, Bonifacio makes a choice. If peace cannot free the nation, then revolution will. And so, the Katipunan is born, the Katastasan, Kadalangalangang Katipunaning Mga Anaking Bayan, or simply, KKK. It begins as a whisper, spreading from one brother to another, from one heart to the next. The Spaniards call them rebels. The people call them hope. Time fast forwards. Bonifacio and his beloved Gregoria de Jesus walk together through the narrow streets, their hands entwined, their dreams one. At the church, they witness a tragic scene: a poor Filipino, beaten and killed by a Spaniard after demanding his unpaid wages from a priest. Gregoria turns away in tears, while Bonifacio clenches his fists, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. "Not yet," he murmurs. "It's not time." but his heart knows the storm is near. Days later, in a dimly lit room, Bonifacio meets with his brothers in arms, Procopio, Teodoro, and others, discussing the growth of their secret society. Procopio insists that more men would join if Andres himself led the fight, but Andres shakes his head. The time will come, he says. We are not ready. The tension is thick, yet their loyalty holds. A brief spark of warmth flickers when Teodoro shyly admits his love for Andres' sister. The moment softens the warrior's face. Then love her truly, Bonifacio says, giving his blessing. Even in times of war, the heart finds reason to hope. Back at the museum, Joaquin's classmates stumble upon a letter Alda Fragile, signed by Gregoria de Jesus herself, speaking of her marriage to Andres. The scene shifts once more to the 1890s. Bonifacio kneels before Gregoria's father, pleading for her hand. The father hesitates but, seeing the sincerity in the young man's eyes, gives his blessing. Bells ring, and their union is sealed, a marriage born in love, soon to be tested by revolution. Soon after, Emilio Aguinaldo, a young general from Cavite, arrives at Bonifacio's home to pledge allegiance to the Katipunan. Their handshake seals a fragile alliance, one that will later fracture under the weight of ambition and distrust. In the museum, one of Joaquin's classmates whispers, "But wasn't Aguinaldo a traitor?" The museum guide, an old man with kind eyes, smiles sadly. "That's what the books say," he replies. But history is written by those who survive. Sometimes, heroes and traitors wear the same face, only time decides who they truly are. The scene dissolves back to Bonifacio's time. The call for revolution spreads like wildfire. The Katipuneros meet deep in the jungle, under the cloak of night. They raise their bolos, chanting oaths of brotherhood, of freedom, of blood and honor. The sound of rustling leaves becomes the sound of 1,000 beating hearts, ready to strike. But fate tests Bonifacio beyond the battlefield. Tragedy strikes, the loss of his child, his firstborn with Gregoria. The pain shatters him. The man who once carried the fire of rebellion now carries grief in his eyes. Gregoria holds him as he weeps, whispering that their fight must go on, that their child's spirit will live through the struggle for freedom. At the Diario de Manila, whispers of the revolution spread through the printing presses. Leaflets, manifestos, and secret letters circulate across the archipelago. But one man's betrayal ends the secrecy. The Spaniards raid the office, their boots thundering against wooden floors. They find the papers, proof of rebellion, and execute those they deem guilty. The flames of war can no longer be contained. Bonifacio gathers his brothers. "Enough," he says, his voice trembling with fury. "If they call us traitors for loving our country, then let us show them what true traitors fear." The meeting grows tense, every man ready to lay down his life. His hands tremble, not with fear, but with fury. "The time has come," he declares, his voice echoing through the jungle canopy. "We shall rise as one nation, one people, one cry for freedom." The Katipuneros cheer, their bolos raised high, their hearts ablaze. On that night, the cry of Pugadlawan is born, a cry that shatters centuries of silence. One by one, they tear their cédulas, the symbol of Spanish control, and toss them into the air. The fragments flutter like the wings of doves, fragile, fleeting, but unstoppable. War erupts. Smoke rises from villages, gunfire echoes through the fields, and rivers run red with the price of liberty. Bonifacio leads from the front, his feet muddy, his clothes torn, his spirit unbroken. He is no longer just a man, he is a symbol, a living flame guiding his people through darkness. But freedom is not won easily. For every victory, there are 100 losses. The Spaniards retaliate with fury, capturing, torturing, and executing suspected rebels. The revolution spreads, but so does division. In Cavite, a young general named Emilio Aguinaldo rises to prominence, commanding men with skill and discipline. His victories earn him fame, and soon, whispers begin, whispers that question who truly leads the revolution. Bonifacio, burdened by the weight of leadership, travels to Cavite to unite the factions. His wife, Gregoria, pleads for him to be cautious, but he reassures her with a gentle smile. For the nation to stand, it must first be won. When he arrives, the air is tense. The Magdalo and Magdawang factions eye each other with suspicion. At the Tigueros convention, a meeting meant to unite the revolutionaries instead divides them further. Inside the crowded hall, men argue passionately. Voices clash like swords. The question, who shall lead the new revolutionary government? Ballots are cast, names are called. When the count ends, it is Emilio Aguinaldo who is declared president, even in his absence. Bonifacio, the founder of the revolution, receives only humiliation. And yet, he stands, his pride wounded but his voice calm. I do not seek power, he says. I seek freedom. But his words fall on deaf ears. Jeers rise from the crowd, and someone calls him unworthy. In that moment, history fractures. Later that night, Bonifacio and his few loyal men leave Cavite in silence. The once united Katipunan now stands divided by ego, mistrust, and ambition, the same poisons they sought to purge from their oppressors. As days pass, tension turns to hostility. Accusations spread that Bonifacio is plotting rebellion against Aguinaldo's leadership. Orders are given. Soldiers are sent. One morning, deep in the mountains of Indang, Bonifacio's camp is surrounded. Gunshots break the dawn. Procopio, his brother, is struck down. Bonifacio is wounded, his blood staining the soil he fought to free. He is captured, dragged away by men who once called him Supremo. The film slows. In the flickering torchlight of a makeshift prison, Bonifacio sits in chains. His face is bruised, but his eyes, those fiery eyes, still burn with conviction. Across from him, his brother lies dying, whispering his final words. Andres, the fight must go on. Days later, Bonifacio stands before a military court, accused of treason, not by the Spaniards, but by his own countrymen. The verdict is swift. Guilty. The sentence, death. In the quiet dawn of May 10, 1897, Bonifacio is led to the mountains of Maragondon. The forest is still, as if holding its breath. The soldiers hesitate, they know who stands before them, the man who lit the spark of revolution. His lips curling into a faint smile. If I must die, he says softly, let it be for the country I love. A single gunshot echoes through the valley. Then another. Andres Bonifacio, the father of the Philippine Revolution, falls to the ground. The fire flickers, but it does not die. Back in the present, Joaquin stands before an exhibit of Bonifacio's blood-stained flag. His classmates chatter behind him, but he remains silent, staring at the tattered cloth as if hearing echoes of the past. The museum's dim lights shimmer like candle flames. The guide approaches quietly and says, he was only 33 when he died. But the dream he began, that never ended. At the public speaking contest, Joaquin steps onto the stage. His voice shakes at first, but then steadies, carried by the spirit of those who came before him. He speaks not of heroes and statues, but of human beings who dared to stand when others bowed. Freedom, he says, is not given. It is earned and guarded by those who believe that their voice, however small, can change a nation. The crowd listens, silent and moved. In that moment, history breathes again, through him. The echoes of Joaquin's speech still linger as the scene fades back to the pages of history. They tried to silence the priests, but their faith gave birth to Rizal. They tried to imprison Rizal, but his words awakened Bonifacio. They tried to kill Bonifacio, but his dream gave life to a nation. And now, that same fire burns in us. In you. In me. In every Filipino who still believes that our greatest weapon is not hate, but hope. For every Filipino who still believes in the dream of freedom. The music fades. Silence returns. And in that silence, the fire burns on.